Surrender by trusting and understanding that your plan, what you have, the step-by-step process of how you're gonna get to the next destination is so much harder and so much more filled with suffering and pain than the plan that God has literally laid out for you. For those of you guys, it's the first time you might be meeting me. My name is Elizabeth Jasmine Ifákóredé Ifáfayėmí. My given name is Elizabeth and my Ifa name is Ifákóredé Ifáfayėmí. Don't know who I am as well. I started off in 2019 as a reader. I've had the pleasure of working with companies such as Essence, and I did reading for years until I found a really big calling of mine, which is helping to activate people and align people on their path. I have an extensive background in neuroscience, bachelor's and master's, and I work a lot with the subconscious. This video is going to be all about your healing journey, questions about your healing journey, where you start, all of that, maybe things you know, maybe some things that you didn't know, and we're just going to really have a Q&A, sit down, chit chat, and really get into the meat and potatoes of what this is. What is healing? What is all of this that people keep talking about nowadays, right? We need to get down to it. Everybody's pretending like they know what they're talking about, but yet we still have questions. So let's get to the questions, you guys. So if you see me sipping something, I am drinking coconut and pineapple juice. It is so good. So one major question that I got at least 2 to 3 times that you guys sent me was, how do I start my healing journey? Now there's so many different things that you can do to start, but in my personal opinion and from working with so many people over the past years, the main way that you start is by cultivating a higher level of self-awareness. Now, what does that mean, right? That means you need to start to become the observer of your mind and not just the one that runs with every single thought. When you have cravings, when you have beliefs, when you have anything, and I'm not just talking about food cravings, right? I'm talking about, oh, I want to go here, or I want to be here, or I want to do X, Y, and Z. You need to start thinking about why you are having these thoughts. What are the things that you are gravitating towards? What are the things that you are aligning with? And is that in alignment with where you want to be going? I'm going to give you guys a really good exercise as well that can help you cultivate not just self-awareness, but also enlightenment. So what you're basically going to do is you're going to sit down for 5 minutes, put 5 minutes on the timer. You just have that timer on with the 5 minutes. Just notice what thoughts come in and out and write some thoughts down. Okay, every single thought that comes in or out while you are trying to quote unquote still your mind, write down all of those thoughts and give each one of these thoughts that sound similar a number. So if you're having thoughts of worry or anxiety, maybe give that a number 1. If you're having thoughts of self-loathing, maybe give that a number 2. And you're basically going to start to label the voices in your head, and you start to detach from their story, right? Because these thought forms have a story behind why they're telling you to do certain things. Oh, you need to check Instagram. Why do I need to check Instagram? Okay, because you need to look at the likes that you recently got on your last picture. Why do I need to do that? Because I feel like people don't like me. Get down to the root of what these thoughts are telling you and what belief is behind them. This is going to help you cultivate a higher level of self-awareness. Now, this is a funny topic because a lot of spiritual people, they get on here and they preach and they do all the good things, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, a lot of people have spiritual egos. A lot of people have pieces of themselves that they haven't dealt with. So a lot of people who seem to be advanced actually have not cultivated a higher level of self-awareness and haven't actually sat down to do that deep inner work of asking what stories, what fear-based stories, what anxiety-based stories, what anger-based stories are running my thoughts. And when you really look into the base of that, this really helps you, 1, have more compassion for yourself, 2, overcome those stories, and 3, liberate yourself from your mind. Because guess what? You are not your mind. You are not your thoughts. You're not even your body. And so the way that we get down to the real essence of the spiritual journey is by developing a deeper relationship with your spirit, with your essence. And that's going to be free of these thought forms that are trying to take over your life. It's going to be what your soul resonates with, what brings you peace and your true, expansive, amazing, complete self. I can be really wordy sometimes, you guys. That's just how I talk. I'm a Gemini. For you guys who have taken courses with me and all that kind of stuff, you guys know how I am, but that's just what it is. Next question. can you heal in the environment where you got hurt from family, friends, or do you have to move on? I definitely feel that you have to move on. You have to take yourself out of the environment. Now, there's 3 different levels to this. You can take yourself out of the environment physically, you can take yourself out of the environment mentally, or you can take yourself out of the environment spiritually. What does this mean? If you are forced to be in that same environment physically for now, say you can't up and move tomorrow, right? Like you have to make some type of change now. You have to stop paying the toll to these problems, right? And so what I mean by this is, and you guys who have taken my courses on Patreon, you guys know what I'm about to say, but literally create a oasis in your mind, an oasis for your spirit that you are going to live in, and you're no longer going to pay and give your attention to all these other things that are trying to divert you or pull you away from the healing or the growing that you're supposed to be doing or that you're wanting to be doing, right? And so basically, say you have a room and you're in your house and you cannot move from your family just yet because maybe you're saving up money or whatever the case is. You have to create a literal oasis in your home to a point where you are unaffected by anything else that's going on in the outside. That means having serious spiritual discipline to the practices that are going to make your mind feel like an oasis. Now this can be meditation, this can be breath work, this could be sound healing, and this also means at any given moment or any time that you possibly can, what you're also going to do is you're going to engage in practices and participate in things that make you feel at peace, to a point where when you go back to that space, you're not so heavily affected by those things that you're trying to leave. And so I suggest that you definitely need to leave at some point from these environments that you were really hurt in. But if you cannot leave right now, you must make your space, your room, whatever space that you have, your oasis, your version of an oasis. This doesn't mean you have to go out and spend so much money, but this does mean that you have to sit down and ask, okay, how can I rearrange things? How can I get rid of things? How can I make room for things? And what is in my control right now to change, to create a balanced environment within my mind, body, and spirit right now? How do you heal from the confusion? When you can see the healed version, but somehow you feel stuck still. Okay, so very, very simple exercise that I suggest everyone to do when you're feeling stuck, you're in between versions of yourself, okay? Super simple. Ask yourself 3 questions. What needs to stay, what needs to improve, and what needs to go. Now, these are going to be in regards to your habits with yourself, whether it's with your diet, your exercise, or your spirituality, and this could help you get unstuck, okay? Now, from the things that need to improve and the things that need to go, you need to create an action plan of how you're going to implement these things in your life. So that's the best way to get unstuck, is by asking yourself those 3 questions. It helps you have gratitude, number 1, for what needs to stay, but also shift your perspective, move from a space of gratitude into action with the things that need to improve and need to go. And this helps to see where you may be lacking or where you may be needing just a little bit more work on. Next question is, how do you know when you are ready to be out of the cocoon? You have to really be careful with this, right? How you know that you're ready to be out of the cocoon phase is when you start to feel that inspiration, when you start to feel ideas come to you, when you start to feel that something needs to change. You're going to start to feel energy rise in your body. You're going to start to be inspired by different things, and you're going to start to just feel a calling to just work on different things. And I'm not saying you have to put everything out there right now, but you feel it within your body when you are ready to move. You feel it within your body when the energy is rising. And so the main way to know when you are ready to be out of that cocoon phase is when you start to feel a call to action. You're going to start to feel inspired, and you're going to start to feel this call to action. Now you have to ask, is my cocoon still necessary, or is it comfortable? Again, is my cocoon still necessary, or is it comfortable? Okay, when you ask yourself that question, am I just comfortable, or is this necessary? That also helps to shift your perspective and be so honest, you guys. When you're really honest with yourself, this is the only way for you to make any progress. When you're not honest with yourself, you're not gonna go anywhere. The next question is how to make peace with past mistakes and old ways of seeing yourself. You have to rewrite your relationship with your story. Now, what I mean by this is some of us have this relationship with our past mistakes where we're automatically trying to write the future. Because I did this, I can't do this. Or because I did this, I have to feel like this forever. Start to notice how the story is playing in your mind and how the story is dictating your feelings and emotions. And then you have to rewrite your relationship with the story. Because I made this mistake, it taught me this. And because I now have this wisdom, I can do this. So again, because I made this mistake, it taught me this. From making this mistake, I have this wisdom. And because I have this wisdom, I can now do this. So you're giving yourself permission to move forward by seeing the wisdom that you learned from this specific situation, thanking your past for the things that you went through, and then choosing to move forward. Now, the difficult part about this is when you have people in your life who want to remind you of your past and try to make you stick to an old story. But you cannot shame the unshamed, okay? You cannot tell someone to feel bad about something that they just simply don't feel bad about. The only reason why, what other people say to you may get to you is because there's still something within you that resonates with that thing. So when you've done the work to see the wisdom in your mistakes, and not just harping on yourself in the form of like being guilty all the time and constantly getting down on yourself, when you actually see the wisdom and thank the story and thank the mistake rather that happened in the past and give yourself permission to move forward, this helps you liberate yourself from guilt. Also understanding that God forgives all. I'm going to repeat that again because a lot of y'all are not going to hear me with that one. God forgives all. Time is an illusion. And let's also remember that past, present, and future are also happening simultaneously. Now, this is a higher level teaching, so I'm not going to go too deep into this. But what I mean by this is, and how this relates to what I'm trying to say, is basically you need to know that God forgives you because it was already written and God already saw that you were going to make this mistake. And when you were born and in other times where you felt God's love, that love is unconditional regardless because God knows your whole timeline. God knows exactly where you're going to go, how you're going to get there, and how long it's going to take you, okay? So understand that there is no wrath of God. God is not taking score of your mistakes. Understand that God is an all-knowing being that has already seen your past, present, and future, and has already forgiven you for your past, present, and future. And so when you're having a hard time as well forgiving yourself for mistakes of the past, ask God to take this away. Ask God to take away your guilt. Ask God to help you forgive yourself because I know that you have already forgiven me. Tap into the infinite source that is always giving to you. And the way that you know it's always giving to you, because if God did not forgive you, you would have dropped dead the second that you made that mistake, babe. You would have dropped dead. Because God is life. And if God didn't love you, or God, had some type of wrath against you, then the minute that God felt this negative way about you, you would have dropped dead because God would have taken itself away or outside of your body and looked at you as something to be mad at, instead of seeing it as a piece of themselves. And the reason why God loves us so much is because we are all literally little pieces of God, which is the only reason why we're able to have life and move around. The life within our body and our cells is God. The memory of our cells and the way that the cells are able to communicate is because of God. God is the electricity behind your light, beloved. And if God was mad at you, then God would have turned off your light a long time ago. So if you're having problems, first rewrite your story, and second ask God to help you forgive yourself. And that's going to be something that may take time. You may have to wake up every other day or every day, and the first thing that you do is you greet the Most High and you say, God, take this away from me. Take this guilt away from me. I know that you've already forgiven me. Allow me to forgive myself. Allow me to see the wisdom that I'm looking for in my story. And the more that you do that, and the more that you center God in your practice that is unconditional and all-knowing, you can forgive yourself, I promise. It's going to happen. What steps would you take in breaking bad habits? This is a really good question. You have to ask yourself why you're addicted to that bad habit. You have to ask yourself why you're addicted to that bad habit. What does it give you? What is it giving? What is it giving your ego? Or what is it giving your shadow? Or what is it giving you? What is this bad habit giving you? What do you feel when you're doing this bad habit? Do you feel happy? Do you feel comforted? Do you feel safe? Do you feel at peace? and start to give yourself the very thing that you're looking for at the end of that act, doing something else. Now, what I mean by this is if you're constantly smoking weed because you're trying to run away from your mind or because you're trying to quiet your mind, you have to ask yourself, A, why am I smoking weed, right? And then you have to ask yourself, B, what other things in my life that are healthy for me that quiet my mind? Every single time that you feel that urge to try to quiet your mind, you have to make a conscious choice to do something else that is going to be just as effective, if not more effective, for the same result that you're looking for. Another way to help to break bad habits is by taking the middleman out. How do you feel before? How do you feel during? And how do you feel after? How do you feel before you smoke weed? I feel anxious. How do I feel after I smoke weed? I feel bad. I know that I shouldn't have done that, right? Maybe you feel guilt. Maybe you feel paranoid. Maybe you're overthinking. And instead of seeing that middleman, instead of seeing the result that you're looking for, start to think about how it makes you feel after and ask yourself, is it worth it? Is it worth it? Now, those two exercises can be life-changing if you do that work behind it. Ask yourself, what is that bad habit giving me that I'm actually looking for? Because chances are you're not addicted to the thing that you're doing, you're addicted to the feeling that you're looking for. And that's just giving you a hit of the feeling that you're looking for. The more that you focus on different ways that you can in a healthy way, give yourself the feeling that you're looking for, the more and more you can start to break that habit. How do you forgive yourself for consciously engaging in low vibes? Example, gossip or judging. By understanding that the human experience is a combination of two things, consciousness and memory. And sometimes we engage in the things that we know aren't good for us. Why? Because our memory tells us that this is familiar, therefore it is safe, therefore it is okay. And by understanding that our memory labels things that are familiar as safe, not things that are good for us as safe. And by giving yourself grace because you are still trying to pull yourself back into the seat of your own consciousness, but before you acted from memory. But understanding that maybe it's just a habit that was ingrained and normalized, but you know you're trying to break from it. Now the problem is when you've noticed the pattern, now you have to understand that it's no longer a pattern. When you notice it, it becomes a choice. And so then you have to ask yourself, why am I continuously choosing to engage in this thing that I know brings me down? What am I looking for behind it or underneath it? Okay, am I looking for a feeling of feeling important? Am I looking, when it comes to gossiping or judging, am I trying to feel like I'm better than other people? Am I looking for a reason for me to feel like I'm better than other people? And really give yourself what you need, which is self-love. Bitterness, question mark, lacking energy for the higher self. So basically how to heal from bitterness. Underneath all anger is hurt. Underneath all anger is pain. You need to address the pain that's underneath it. Pain is the soil that anger sprouts from, okay? And so when you're bitter and when you feel those angry emotions, you have to ask yourself, what am I actually hurt about? What is actually causing me pain? And when you address that, when you release that, when you let that go, whether it's through journaling, talking it out, or through ritual, that is when you can get through that bitterness. But you're gonna still feel that bitter bite, right? That the little taste in your mouth, that bitterness, as long as you choose to not address that pain that's underneath it. So it's time for you to address that pain, babe. Do you have any thoughts or advice on healing the self while in a healthy, loving relationship? Spend more time by yourself. Spend more time by yourself. I know a lot of y'all are gonna be looking at me and being like, but Elizabeth, I do not want to spend time by myself. Babe, spend more time by yourself. Spend more time by yourself, okay? The relationship is the icing on the cake. It's not the cake. It's not the cake, okay? And the only way to make a good relationship last is when two people are whole by themselves and then they come together to choose to enjoy life together, but they don't make each other the foundation for their own life. To keep the passion up in the relationship is by being yourself, being the person that being that person that your partner was originally attracted to, which is the person who was more invested within themselves. Heal the self while in a healthy, loving relationship is by focusing on the things that you know you need to heal. Point blank, period. Do not let the relationship be the center of your whole life. Please share some key ways to heal abandonment wounds. They're holding me back. Inner child work. you're going to have to go back to some memories in which you first felt this feeling of abandonment and give yourself the love, the care, and the affirmation that little you needed. When you go back and do that regression work, you heal your relationship with that memory. Then that memory no longer continues to run in your aura as a base point for how you interpret the world. You must go back. You must do that deep inner child healing work. And without that work, you're not going to be able to be present in any relationship because you are still going to be reacting from past wounds. Issue a hard copy of a picture of little you and talk to that version of you every single day. Put it somewhere by your bed to where before you even put your feet on the ground every morning, you're talking to that version of you. You're building a relationship with that version of you. Slowly and surely, there's going to be so many other things that come up for you as you do this type of work. But this is how you're going to start to do it, is by talking to this version of you and letting them know that you are here now, that you are here to protect them now, that you love them now, that you are not going to abandon them now. And when you make yourself, as in your relationship with little you, and you as the foundation, instead of still reacting from the pain of what wasn't there, you then heal. But you have to first start by talking to little you, because she in there. They're in there. I don't know if I don't know who asked this question to me, but they're in there and they're waiting for you to come home. So come home to yourself. I love this question. Next question is, how do I balance shadow work and light work, mirror work, affirmations, embodying the higher self? Beloved, I think that you answered your own question, but let's talk about it. How do I balance shadow work and light work? Yes. By having grace and compassion for yourself. Your higher self, your soul, does not have likes or dislikes. It is only your personality which has likes or dislikes. And your personality has been made over time through your experiences and through the things that you naturally feel an affinity for. And so I'm saying this to say that sometimes when we do shadow work, we can get so down on ourselves. Oh my God, babe, I'm so jealous. I'm so this, I'm so that. I feel like I'm not that good of a person. When in reality, it's your personality that's telling you that this is something bad. Because of what society looks down upon, you can feel like it's so bad to have some of these emotions. But in reality, any emotion, any energy can be alchemized for something good. For example, if you have all this jealousy within your body, number one, doing that self-love work and self-worth work is going to be so important. But also, your jealousy is a compass for your desire. What are you looking for? What are the things that you really desire to have? And why do you tell yourself that you can't have them? What jealousy really is as well, now that we're on the topic of jealousy, because I feel like this is a major shadow work aspect that a lot of people need to work on. When we feel jealousy, what jealousy actually is the feeling that's in between wanting and having. Now, you want something so bad, but you're feeling the vastness between wanting it and not having it. And that energy in the middle, beloved, is going to be jealousy, right? But how we combat jealousy is by understanding that if we want something, when we affirm that we are worthy of it and we also can have it, you move these two right together, right? So then you feel less jealous of something that you know is attainable for you. So the way that you balance these things with shadow work and higher self work is by having compassion and grace for yourself, as well as continuing to cultivate a higher sense of self-awareness so that you know exactly what is the beast that you're being faced with and how you're going to transcend it. Love this question. How do I stop being so cynical? Where did you learn to be cynical? You need to ask yourself that question. If you have a habit of being cynical, we can see this as a part of memory, because habits are directly tied to memory. And so how do you stop being cynical? By asking yourself, when is the first time that someone told you that this was the only way that it should be? Where did you first learn this behavior? And then literally going back in time with meditation and regression to talk to that version of you and release the energy and the original pain that that version of you felt. When you have stripped away everything, how do you focus on joy again, other than through gratitude? This is a very beautiful question. Many of us have been conditioned to find joy in things that are really not good for us. we find joy in drinking, or we find joy in being in low vibrational places. And I'm not judging, because I'm Caribbean, you guys. I love being in the club. I love doing X, Y, and Z. But at some point, we have to ask ourselves, when does it stop becoming fun? And when does it just start becoming a habit to expect fun to be in these places, right? And are these things really fueling us, or are they draining us? So the best way to find your joy again when you've stripped away everything is to become childlike. It's to decide from here on out that you're only going to do the things that you loved to do as a child. The things that are pure and innocent, and the things that you really felt yourself, fully like yourself, while doing. And cultivating a new sense of childlike joy that is innocent and that is pure and that is free from influence, that just has to do with you and your true essence. And this is gonna sound a little dark, but also understanding that some times in your life are not all about joy. Sometimes in your life are just about building your business, or building yourself, or building a relationship with God. But sometimes you can't focus on what makes your flesh happy. You have to focus on what makes your spirit happy. But true joy is something that can only be experienced when we've taken away all of the conditioning and programming of the things that people have told us should bring us joy, whether that's shopping or going out or all these worldly things. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with these things, but I am saying reevaluate your relationship with these things. And do you even really like these things? Begin to ask yourself that. Or am I trying to fill a void, fill a hole that I just feel like is empty? And so you could begin to cultivate joy again by, number one, getting back in tune with your inner child, but also by, number two, developing a deeper relationship with yourself and with God and with your spirit. And when you do that, you can shift into full alignment. So I have so many more questions, but I'm gonna end with this one. Any suggestions when you are resistant to change? To make small changes that push you toward the direction that you want to go to. The version of me who's already made this change, what is something small that they do every day? What is something small that they feel every day that's different than how I feel? And how can I cultivate that within myself? You can slowly start to make more and more of those changes. Maybe that version of you who's made that big change, maybe they do things like a to-do list, or maybe they take more spiritual baths, or maybe they spend more time working out. Whatever the case is, start to do more of those things, the smaller things that allow you to embody the higher self, or the next version of you who's already made that change, and slowly inch into the big change. And when you develop your habits, and when you fine-tune your habits, and you get closer and closer to the person who you know you want to be, it's gonna feel effortless for you to then make that big shift. And I lied, I have one more here. How does one surrender? You surrender by trusting and understanding that your plan, what you have, the step-by-step process of how you're gonna get to the next destination, is so much harder and so much more filled with suffering and pain than the plan that God has literally laid out for you. You surrender by giving up, putting your hands, we could do this exercise together right now. Take your hands and put them on your lap, face up, and say, God, I surrender my plan for yours. I surrender my suffering for ease. I surrender my resistance for flow. And when you say that prayer over and over again, maybe it's on a daily basis, maybe it's every night, maybe it's in the times that you really feel down and out, up against the wall, God hears every single prayer. And there is no prayer that goes unanswered. And so when you involve God into your conversation and make surrendering the topic, it's so much easier for you to allow yourself to be in flow. But that surrender isn't just through action. It's not just with you giving up. Even though it's gonna feel like you're giving up, it's gonna be actually you giving in. And it's gonna be your ability to sit down and make that commitment every other day or every day where you just say, God, I'm giving it up to you, and you have that direct one-on-one conversation. When you start to open up that conversation, God starts to talk back to you. And then it becomes a lot easier for you to flow into surrender. And so the first thing is understanding, number one, that your plan is so much harder. What would you do if you knew that your plan was so much harder than the plan that God has for you? What would you do? You would give up your plan and you would ask for the next one. You would ask for the higher plan. So have that conversation and start talking to God about what you're giving up, what you're surrendering, and what you're releasing. And God will speak back to you. On that note, my loves, I have so many more questions, but if you guys want me to make a part 2 like this video, comment part 2 in the comments and I will definitely make a part 2 for you guys. So again, if you guys want me to make a part 2, definitely comment below. If you have any other questions, also comment those below. Definitely feeling like I want to make a part 2. But this has been amazing. I love you guys so much and I'll see you soon. Peace, love, and light.